Torah Life Ministries come out of the world. Messiah people seek the truth.
Hello everybody, it's Paul Neeson with Torah Life Ministries. We are reading this next week's Torah portion, and if you're not familiar with that, that is the teachings from the first 5 books of the scriptures, which Yeshua our Messiah taught his message from. And we're going to be reading Numbers 421 to 789 today. And in Numbers 421 to 789, it talks a lot about the positions in the tabernacle when the children of Israel were in the desert, and who from what tribe is to do what and carry what, and where they're supposed to play certain instruments in the tabernacle and so on. But I want to look at Numbers 5. And in Numbers 5, it again talks about Moses being the messenger. And see, our Creator continuously spoke to Moses and told him, tell the people of Israel this, or tell the children of Israel this, as he referred to them as my children, as long as he was okay with them. But when he was upset with them, he doesn't even call them my children. He says, the people of Israel, or these people have not listened or not obeyed. But in Numbers 5:1, our Creator says to Moses, order the people of Israel to expel from the camp anyone with tazarit. And tazarit is, we discussed it in a previous Torah portion, is a contagious illness. And some people call it actually Lashon Hara, which it means talking evil or talking gossip. But the real definition is a contagious illness, almost like leprosy. But it wasn't technically leprosy, but it was a disease that was on the skin, and it actually could attach to the house walls and so on. So it was a contagious disease. And, well, some people say what causes it is Lashon Hara, or talking evil or gossip will cause it. But so it says, order the people of Israel to expel from the camp everyone with tazarit, everyone with a discharge, and whoever is unclean because of touching a corpse, both male and female you must expel. Put them outside the camp. And here is the answer why. Because somebody not familiar with the Torah, or even familiar with it, might say, well, why is he saying us this? Why is he saying people that are unclean should be put out of the camp? Why? And the reason is given in the next verse, and we're going to talk about it, or the next part of this verse, which is Numbers 5:1. Actually, 5:3 it's given at the end of 5:3. But before I talk about it, I'll tell you, the main idea, one of the most important ideas of the scripture is community. And we must go through all means necessary to keep the community pure. And when we do something that is in jeopardy of destroying the root of the community, that is what Messiah teaches and our Creator teaches, that we must put an end to it as soon as possible. That's why it says in the scriptures, if anyone picks up a stick on the Sabbath, to kill them. That's why it says if your children are unruly and not obeying, kill them. It wasn't about just killing your kids. It was about keeping the community pure. And they go to the extreme, or they teach to the extreme to do so. Because I'm telling you, once that happens one time, it's not happening again. So we see here, it says in Numbers 5:3, both male and female you must expel. Put them outside the camp, and here's why. So they won't defile the camp. So they will not corrupt, so they will not defile the camp. So they will not make the camp unclean. And then he goes on to say, where I live among you. So when we are in his presence, we must be as clean as possible. And to do that, we must be obedient as possible. And for non-obedience, he calls us unclean and says we must be out of his presence. So when you accept Yeshua as your Messiah, you need to make sure you're keeping the guidelines and instructions of our Creator. It goes on to say in Numbers 5:4, the people of Israel did this and put them outside the camp. The people of Israel did what our Creator had said to Moses. Again, he started off saying, order the people of Israel to expel everyone from the camp. And the people listened. They obeyed. And that's what it comes down to. And we see in the next verse, in Numbers 5:5, it says, our Creator said again to Moses, tell the people of Israel, when a man or a woman commits any kind of sin against another person and then breaks faith with his Creator, he incurs guilt. and then it goes on to the instructions of guilt and what he must do. You see, you understand, when you accept Messiah and our Creator's in your presence, you have to uphold righteousness in every area. And you can't get away, you can't hide from him. He does see you, he sees your heart. And that's what it's about. Now, there's two other areas in this week's Torah portion I want to talk about. The first one is the idea of head coverings, because it's such a controversial idea, and there's no command in Scripture for a woman to cover her head. But there are scriptures that point to women had their head covering, or at least their hair up. And I've taught in my modesty teachings the importance of keeping your hair up or covered, because the hair is the sexiness of a woman, and when it's down, long and flowing, what it does is attract a man in a way that often can be in the wrong attention or the wrong attitude. So if a woman wants to have her hair down and sexy, that should be for her spouse and not for the world to be viewing. And it says here, in just one of the examples of where it points to how a woman, a righteous woman at that time, or a woman at that time, had a hair covered or at least binded up, was in this Torah portion, which is Exodus 5:18, and it talks about the woman who is accused of committing adultery, and the husband gets some guilt or feels that there's a spirit of jealousy that she did something wrong. It says here, the priest will put holy water in a clay pot, and the Kohen will take some of the dust and the floor of the tabernacle and put it in the water. And that was Numbers 5:17, and then Numbers 5:18 it says, the priest will place the woman before our Creator and unbind the woman's hair and put a grain offering of remembering in her hands. And then it goes on to talk about this drink they create, and the woman must drink it, and if she's found guilty, her private parts will shrivel up and she can't have kids, but if she's innocent, she will bear children, which was a blessing at that time. But it says unbind the woman's hair specifically, which leads us to believe that a woman who was righteous and clean at that time had her hair up, and it was binded. And one of the penalties, or one of the things the priest made this woman do who was possible of committing adultery, was to unbind her hair, to make her look as equal to her actions. If she wants to look and show her sexiness and reveal her beauty to another man other than a husband, well, why not reveal it to the world? This was considered a thing at the time that a woman didn't do. At the time, a woman kept her hair either covered or binded, as it says here, and that's just the way it was. So she was blessed if she was innocent, and if she was guilty, her private parts would shrivel up, and that's the way it was. You see, there aren't always direct commands, but there are things that point in Scripture to things that show the way it was. And some of these things were the way it was at that time, so we don't understand today the way it was. We have to really look at a deep study to see how it is. Now, we spoke earlier in this Torah portion about going to great lengths to please our wonderful Creator and being clean in His presence. And in Numbers 6, it talks about a Nazirite vow, which is taking a vow, showing that you are going to, for a certain amount of time, live in a certain way. And it says in Numbers 6, our Creator said to Moses, tell the people of Israel, when either a man or a woman makes a special kind of vow, concentrating themselves to their Creator, he is to abstain from wine and other intoxicating liquor, and he is not to drink vinegar from either source, and he is also not to touch or eat any grapes or anything from the grapevine. Now, there's other things that are required, but we look at this and we look at what he says to do. No wine, alcohol, or intoxicating liquor, and then he goes on to say no vinegar either, or either source. Anything that is fermented, a sugar that is fermented, can turn into alcohol and can create an intoxicated liquor. So again, as we saw earlier, the Scriptures do not give a command us not to do something, but it talks about us being clean and being in a special way, a special clean way. And we talk about wine and liquor in the Scriptures. First of all liquor is intoxicating if you abuse it, and it's very easy to abuse if you're not normally having it. Well, we talk about Scripture, we talk about wine in the Scriptures, and in the Scriptures, wine, it can refer to anything. It can refer to unfermented grape juice or fermented grape juice, and so on. And there are scriptures in the Bible that tell people to have wine. And even Yeshua even made wine. But specifically here, it says, when a man or a woman enters a special kind of vow, he is to abstain from wine and other intoxicating liquors. And I believe, if not forever, but at least for a certain amount of time, people that are used to drinking wine, intoxicating liquors, or doing these things should take a certain amount of time to abstain from it and go into a time of maybe either fasting and praying and see what our Creator has to tell them about that and about all other scriptures to see. And I think something special really will happen during that time. And the rest of the scriptures here continue to talk about that vow, and then it goes on to continue to talk about the tabernacle and the service of who's to do what in the tabernacle. It's a very important chapter of scripture, which is Numbers 7. And that's what we look at in Numbers and what it is. It talks about the measurements of the tabernacle, how to build it, how to put the things in it, and who's to do what tribe is to do what, even everything to the finest detail of where they're supposed to stand and who from each tribe is supposed to do what. So I definitely think it's a chapter that's often read over or missed, Numbers 6 and 7, or 5, 6, and 7, and I think we need to study it more closely and do some more study on that. So that's Paul Neeson with Torah Life Ministries in this week's Torah study. If you have any questions or comments, post them below the video. Until then, everybody have a great Shabbat next Sabbath, and have a great day today, and shalom, shalom.